What does world-class real estate look like to you?
It's about creating relationships,
consistent communication.
Estate agency with a great culture, who care for their people, who care for their clients, who care for their customers, without just looking at the number at the end of the commission check.
I think it's about amazing customer service.
It's about people, not property.
This episode is sponsored by Iceberg Digital.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. Today we are recording live in person in Coventry and we're joined by Lee O'Brien from IAD.
You got it right, well done.
There's pressure there. Saw the concentration on my face.
It's more likely to be a typo than it is. Yeah. How are you, Lee? Thanks for joining us, mate.
Good, thanks, guys. Yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me up, and nice to do one in live as opposed to over Zoom as well. It's cool.
We always find that we have really good quality conversations when we're sat down face to face, which is why I made an effort to start doing it over the last year. But we'll start as we always do, whether we're on Zoom or here in face to face. What does world class real estate look like to you?
I think the future of great agency belongs to personal agents operating in an entrepreneurial way, using tech, but keeping that personal touch and delivering first-class services for their clients.
So what does that look like? What does that personal agent really mean to you? Because it's a term that's thrown around the industry quite a lot. What, in your opinion, is the difference between a personal agent and maybe a high street agent?
So I'm quite passionate about this now. We adapted our model back in 2020, moving towards more of a personal agency service. And in reality, it was reverting back to the estate agency business that I started in 2004, which was me and my business partner, David, and we were giving a personal service because it was only the two of us.
Yep.
We were dealing with everything from the initial valuation call to the appointment, to the photographs, to the viewings, to the offers, to the sales progression, to completion. And we naturally fell into the problem that most high street agents do, that we actually wanted to deliver more and more. And in order to do that, we needed more people to deliver those elements of the service. And we began to silo people within the organization to do particular parts of the role. And what then I think gets left behind when you do have people in silos is that you don't have that personal connection with one person from beginning to end. So personal service and personal agency for me is that sole accountability of the person that you meet on the first interaction that sees you through to the day of completion at the end. And what we were able to see when our agency grew from 2020 by empowering entrepreneurs to come and work alongside us in this personal way was that the reviews that they were receiving went through the roof. And it was far exceeding what we were ever able to achieve as a 3-branch estate agency in working in this sort of what I call now siloed manner. But we thought we were being efficient, but we had to be efficient in that way to do the level of turnover required to run the business and endure the costs of that model. So for me, personal agency is that sole accountability from end to end.
It's like the exact opposite of the high street. We all run the same model. Basically, I probably now do a bit of both in some ways, but our business is set up to do exactly that. And we think it's a significant USP when you're sat in the office and in the lounge, and you say, I'm here today and I'll be here at the viewing and I'll be here at the offer. And do you know what? I'll also be here if there isn't a viewing and there isn't any interest, and I'll be here on completion day. And I think that's a significant USP. Do you think it really matters to homeowners?
I think homeowners are switching on to it. I think when you have the ability to explain it, and for me, one of the things I think gets missed in the siloed environment is the communication flow and the consistency of information. For me, it was always easier for me to go back to a customer after maybe 4 to 6 weeks and discuss price, rather than one of my negotiators discussing price that had never seen the house. And actually, that's a drop in communication. That's a drop in the comments that the customer said to you in the living room that they then might deny 3 weeks later that they discussed to you that we were trying their price rather than my price.
And the other way around.
And exactly. So I think that being able to remain consistent with the communication right the way through the process makes it more of a collaboration. And a lot of our agents now, as they're becoming more successful, they're able to become a little bit more picky, and they're deciding actually the customers that they want to work with are the ones that buy into what they're selling as their service, but actually it's a partnership. it's not a slave and master situation. It's actually, we're in partnership to get this property sold. I'm going to give you true, honest advice at every step of the process. And if things need to change, then I will tell you, and I will tell you quickly. And if you've built that relationship, you've earned those credits to have that conversation. So yeah, I think that personal agency stops that communication gaps and the drops throughout the process.
It's interesting when we look at other industries as well. I was obviously being in this space and having people ask certain questions and talking to employed agents and other business owners. We're obviously in the same mastermind group, and we're outnumbered in terms of that model in that group, but we have, really good conversations with other business owners. But I find the two industries that fascinate me are like lawyers in America, because I love the programs.
Lincoln Lawyer.
Suits, Lincoln Lawyer, all of that. I love all of that. But, they call it the billboard lawyer, don't they? Lincoln Lawyer. But what I think they've done fantastic well when you actually look at those types of setup, they are delivering a service. Obviously, it's a qualified professional service, so it's slightly different. But a lot of those lawyer firms are based on one or two partners. It would be O'Brien and Macbeth, for example, and then associates. And the associates are office manager, front of desk, paralegal, and their support mechanisms employed really key integral people, but they're not client facing. They're not doing that part of the actual expertise, and they make the best lawyer practices in America. And then if you look at how private dentistry is going now, because you can't really find an NHS dentist, it's almost impossible. You've got the dentist, and often there's two dentists and they're business partners, and they've started the dentistry together. And then you've got front of house, reception, and then you've got I don't know what the other person is that does holds the mirror and jet washes you and things like that. The hygienist, that's the one. You've got the person that does that, and their support mechanisms to the key people. And I think businesses in general, it's not just a state agency, that this is now flowing in that direction because of personal brands, social media, marketing. People want to work with the person. And then and the only way you can scale as the person is to have the right support mechanisms around you. And that does include really good people and really good tech, like you said. But that's how I see personal estate agency for me, in my mind.
And I do think, in a really nice way, the customers are coming towards us on it.
Yeah.
And I do think, you have to explain it well, and you have to have that opportunity to explain it. But I think when explaining it, and then they get the second valuation from somebody that doesn't position it that way, that's maybe more in a traditional environment, it does become blindingly obvious. Oh, actually, no, I do know which version I want. And we talk about it around explaining how long you've been at the house, when you did the extension, did the loft have a loft ladder recently, things like little simple things that as a valuer, sometimes you'd forget to tell all of the negotiators. You'd forget to write it down because there wasn't really a process for that, to be religious with it. And then you're on the viewing, and you go boldly walking into the downstairs cupboard thinking it's another room, and it's not, and actually because you haven't been there before. And you've been at I've been at, we've all done it. I've walked into a room thinking it was something else and it wasn't. And that is quite embarrassing. But if you've got that, and you can maybe even explain some of that in the storytelling and how you're talking through with the client, I think it becomes a blindingly obvious option as to the person that you want to be dealing with.
We were talking just off camera. Obviously, IAD is very much European. I think it's international, but very much European dominant. The heat map is very much sort of France, and then ripples out from there. Since yourself and David formed this alliance with IAD, and now you kind of head it up in the UK, what surprised you about the markets in other places, the business models, obviously being kind of it very much in a French kind of environment? Obviously we know there's your EXPs, your Keller Williams, the US, your Remax, US type stuff. Yours is unique in that it's kind of French formed from its origins. So talk us through that, how that kind of works with you.
So it's very much obviously a European dominant company. So we were founded in France in 2008. The largest market that we hold is the French market. Currently have 15,000 agents operating across France. There's a market share there. We're selling 1 in 10 homes in France at the moment. So it's a huge business, and that very much spills out into the other areas. But actually now we're the number 3 agent in Portugal. We're the number 3 agent in Spain, number 2 agent in Italy. It's growing in each of the areas that we are operating. some of the interesting things that we are able to come across in having this sort of European-wide connections and the interactions that we have through the large events and the award trips and things like that to get to see and speak to these agents in the field is that they are a really entrepreneurial bunch. They are dedicated to handling their business like a business as you would expect. And that's really refreshing. It was one of the things that I enjoyed the most when we changed our model. The conversations that we were having changed from manager to employee and entrepreneur to entrepreneur. And we were discussing problems and we were discussing ways in which to solve those problems rather than being asked how to solve those problems. They were investing their money into some of the solutions. And that was a much more enjoyable environment for me, and actually something that I fell in love with at that point, because I wanted to have more of those conversations. I wanted to talk to people about their business generation activities or some new sponsorship idea they had or a marketing initiative. I didn't want to talk to them about a salary review and these sort of things. So the conversation changed, and I have seen that almost at a level 10 from the other markets that we're now exposed to. And I just cannot wait to continue to sow that seed in the UK through our network and actually to see these people really taking hold of their own destiny within our model and building a business that they're proud of and going forward. So I think it sort of opened our eyes to the entrepreneurial community that it has become.
So I didn't know a great deal about IAD before today. Apologies. I'm an ignorant northerner, but talk me through how the link up came between your original business and IAD and the plans and the goals and aspirations for the future, Lee.
So IAD had never entered the UK and until we were in conversation with them. I'd never heard of them either, in all honesty. I hadn't really come across them before. Obviously, we'd all seen the Americans, and it kind of dominated by the Americans up until this point. But they saw the UK as a key market area. It was a key area of growth for them. They as far as they're concerned, one of the key markets in internationally, and somewhere that they wanted to be. They realised, probably having looked at it in the past, that maybe the market wasn't ready for the self-employed model as it stood. But I do feel that with the early establishment of some of the other American players, Keller Williams in the beginnings and things like that, and then the rise of EXP over the prior couple of years before we got involved with IAD, I kind of set the stool for this being an open opportunity for us here in the UK. And that's when they felt the time was right. It was we were approached at one of the awards ceremonies, I think it was the EA Masters back in 2022, to discuss the idea of self-employed agency. We were in self-employed agency. They'd been recommended to speak to us by somebody in the industry, and they just wanted to exchange ideas. Yeah. We sat down. We had a lunch in London with actually the global CEO at the time, and still is the global CEO, who I didn't actually realize was going to be at the lunch. And we just exchanged ideas around self-employed agency, where we saw the future of the business going. David and I shared some ideas that we had for the business, some things that we wanted to introduce to the business, some technology that we wanted to introduce, and they sort of quietly and calmly engaged and nodded and agreed and smiled, and essentially turned around and was able to share with us that all of the stuff that we were looking to be able to do, they'd already done. It was already established within their model. They had the technology, they had the framework and the structure that we were looking to try and create in our own business. And obviously they had the scale. They were the biggest they are the biggest estate agency in Europe. And at that point, we'd never heard of them. So they came with great pedigree, and yet they hadn't sort of, they kept their powder dry, I suppose, until they felt the market was ready. But now it is something that they truly can see and feel is absolutely ready and ripe for disruption here in the UK. And they really want to be part of that. So, we went through a process with them, and in July of 2023 was when we officially launched. They have an ethos that actually the model works. The model is proven and works. Does it work 100% in every country? No. And they're very, very open to that. They feel that maybe 70% of it works in every country and 30% of it needs to be adapted for localization. Yeah. And that's where we came in. They wanted boots on the ground. They wanted established people and people that actually believed in the future of agency being in a self-employed entrepreneurial way. And that's why they partnered with us at the time. And we became that sort of local influence to kind of steer the ship and ensure that the model, the tools, the things that we were giving our agents were absolutely suitable and right for this market.
Talk us through how some of the sort of top performing agents that you've seen since, I think, did you say 2023?
23, yeah.
Yeah, July 23. Talk us through some of the UK ones, and then maybe talk us through some of the European superpowers that you see as well, and what they do really well, what the characteristics are, and there's no silver bullet, obviously, but what are they doing that's different that we could learn from over here, those kind of really, really elite world-class agents?
So we have some fantastic performers within our UK market. One of them is actually based here in Coventry, funnily enough.
Frank Lampard.
Sorry?
Frank Lampard.
Super Frank. No. So Denise May is one of our IAD agents here in Coventry. And she has built a fabulous business over a very short period in time and actually have come from a non-estate agency background. And it's been really interesting to watch and observe that Denise had actually had a career working in project management for the council. And then she actually took an additional job as a viewing assistant for a local agent and just really got the bug for it. Really liked the ability to go and see people and help people on their moving journey, talk to homeowners, look after people. But she wasn't actually able to take the next step into valuations within that environment because they didn't have a valuer role available. They weren't going to employ another valuer. And it was at that moment that she decided that, look, it's something I really want to do. So she joined our business at that moment, having not valued a house, and went through training with us, with the support of a mentor inside of the business. And last year she went on to sell more properties than any other agent inside of the UK network, getting involved in both sales, lettings, and she'd really sort of embraced everything that we have to offer, and built a fantastic business and a fantastic kind of flexible life for herself through the model. So watching somebody on that journey is really nice. And we have lots of different examples where people have built different businesses. So we have ladies that have built businesses around kids and young kids and growing families. We've got agents that have been fed up of the environments that they were working in. They wanted the freedom. They felt now was the time was right to step away from that, and have gone and built brilliant local businesses in and around their local market areas. Internationally has been interesting. So some of the international examples that I was able to glean in. At the back end of last year, we run an annual competition called the IAD World Challenge. And for the top performing agents in every country, they get an all expenses paid, amazing, incredible trip. Last year, we went to Rio for the week. It's an action-packed sort of week, like jam-packed itinerary, really, really fun. But we had 82 agents with us from all 8 countries that we operate in globally. And it was just that great chance for the high performers to connect with each other, to exchange top tips and things that are going on in their market, and actually open the eyes of some of those agents to other opportunities that exist within this business that they've not yet explored. So I was chatting to one of the ladies there on the trip called Kirsty, and she's actually an English lady, but she's the top selling agent in our Portuguese market, essentially selling 100 to 200,000 pound properties in central Portugal to English buyers that want to come over and do things up and buy holiday homes. And she has built a fabulous business inside this model with quite little Portuguese, and she's learning, and she's really learning fast, and she's really trying, and that's getting fantastic for her. But actually she's been able to go and take the model and replicate it through a very personal service, leaning into her edge, which is actually the English speaking.
Was she an agent in England before?
No.
Oh wow. Okay.
So she actually was
She
a
moved to
career changer.
Portugal.
Yeah, career changer. that
Quite
moved to
niche as
Portugal.
well, that, isn't it?
It's a real niche little bit. And it's not like she was sitting in the Algarve where you think, oh, it's really obvious. Actually, it was central Portugal, but it was good value stock that people wanted that country life within Portugal that was accessible. And she's built a fantastic business that's very personal. She helps people with refurbishment works and placing of tradespeople thereafter. And yeah, she's built a fantastic business. One of the elements of our business that it does make us a little bit different is you not only can be an independent estate agent, but you can build a team around you in a very traditional business sense that you would, as David and I did over time as we brought staff in on an employed basis. In this world, you don't have to employ them. They join the business as a self-employed agent, but they form part of your team. And that's an additional revenue stream that people can bring into their business, and they can expand their organization in time and use the energy and use the learnings that they built over their sort of build phase to share with others. And there are some fantastic stories of the agents that are on trips like the one last year that have just built huge organizations of people within this model. And earn a considerable amount of money as part of the process and that part of that revenue stream into their business. We get agents that start out doing lots and lots and lots of sales, and then over time they start to mentor and help others, and they might slow down some of their own productivity, but actually ramp up the amount of agents that they're looking after and can almost duplicate their entire income and more from the agents that they're looking after through the sort of revenue share scheme that's available.
So talk me through, if I'm an employed agent at the moment thinking about going self-employed, you could go Avocado, EXP, Keller, IAD. Talk me through why I should be looking at your business.
So there are a lot of similarities with the businesses and in the self-employed space. Most people will provide you with a CRM. Most people provide you with access to portals, websites, things like that. So all of that is almost a given and should be a given within the model. I think there are some additional bits with the IAD model that makes us stand out and create something, a point of difference. The model itself allows you to build a business under the framework. And not all of the models allow you to do that. With our business, you can take your own income beyond your own activity. So it gives you a look into the future. Do you want to be doing the high levels of business that you're doing now for the next 20 years? Or do you want to change the business structure to suit your life and to suit your ambition in the future? So in order to do that, you might want to add lettings and property management to your offering. It's not always available, but it is available with us. You might there want to mentor other people to be able to join the business and can help share their journey and help support them as they go about building their own estate agency businesses. But one of the good parts about our business is by doing it with us, it is the most beneficial way to build a team. It pays the highest levels of commission to the mentor for looking after those people that are coming into the business. And on top of that, the business that you build, the organization that you build, if you ever wanted to retire in the future and take that step into the sun, you can sell your organization. So you're building an asset of value with us, which I don't think is available in some of the other models. So actually you can go about building a business over time, having access to great tools, an international collaborative community of agents that support each other, and actually going about that. That's not all for nothing in the future. You have an exit if you want one. And actually, I think once you start looking into the long term with agents, it becomes a very obvious option that is the right step for people to make.
It's all about the revenue streams, isn't it? Ultimately, is what agents want to look at from a future point of view. I think that you got two different ways of reviewing self-employed, because one of the key things that probably we all get asked is, well, is the business worth anything? Well, is a sales-only estate agency business worth anything? Whether it's got your name above the door or a brokerage, the answer is ultimately the same, right? So that's a key thing. But I think in the self-employed space, the ability to build a very, very highly profitable company gives you the ability to create wealth into other revenue streams. And I think if I had Ian Macbeth High Street estate agents, I'm going to spend very high cost levels to turn over a decent amount, but the profit margin is going to be so small that I'm not going to be able to build a huge amount of wealth with that asset.
Yeah.
I'm going to really struggle to do that. Whereas if I'm a self-employed agent, I'm going to make way more money profit-wise than what I do as the brokerage owner. The avocado
I know.
agents, you know, some of them they're doing all right. I see a lot of Rolexes turning up at the HQ that I haven't got a Rolex.
I didn't buy one. Yeah.
So where did that car come from? Okay, let's see what's happening here. And that's cool because that's what you've designed.
It's so nice, isn't it? Yeah.
But that is the opportunity that sits around that.
If you're an estate agent listening to this, I want you to think about something for a second. Are you and your team busy, or are you actually being productive? Because most agencies right now are drowning in admin, juggling disconnected systems, chasing portal leads, and wondering why profits aren't where they really should be. Iceberg Digital have taken a completely different approach. Instead of selling another CRM, they've built what they call an AI operating system for estate agents, combining prospecting, marketing, CRM, compliance, even websites into one connected ecosystem. The goal? To increase your revenue per employee, because the agencies that win over the next few years won't be the ones working harder, they'll be the ones working smarter, with systems that actually do the heavy lifting. If you want to future-proof your agency instead of just surviving the next market shift, go and book a demo at icebergdigital.co.uk. That's icebergdigital.co.uk.
Yeah, I mean, wealth creation and building, we talk about goals, aspirations, and, you know, how does an estate agent retire? All of these things that we look at now, and I think it is changing. I've spent quite a lot of time, probably over the last 18 months, looking at more the retire, probably since I turned 40.
Yeah.
I kind of went, okay, well, I would joke about it. I turned 40, I went, I'm half time. So it's
We hope not, but okay.
The wife was like, wow. I was like, well, you know, so you then have to start thinking about things, and you do look at, you know, okay, mortgage, how do we get the mortgage paid off as quickly as possible, and how do we get our ISAs filled every single year, and do you want to pay into a pension? I don't want to pay into a pension. I'm anti-pensions. So, but what else do I want to do? You want to kind of build your pots, don't you, effectively? I've seen a lot of estate agents that are maybe a generation or two above me that have really struggled to do that, be it owners of businesses and career-long employees of estate agency that get to that point and they're like, I don't really have anything to show for it, because keeping up with the Joneses in estate agency is quite a tough thing. You have to have certain car, certain suit, certain look, certain watch potentially. But you mentioned entrepreneurial, obviously different countries looking at things in a different way. Is that something that the cultural side of things, is that something that's had an influence on you at all, would you say?
I think the entrepreneurial pit has really rubbed off. Obviously, I've been, what you say, an entrepreneur since I was 20 when I first started my own business as an estate agency. So I've been in that world for a long time. I didn't really feel it from the market here. I've got lots of friends in agency ownership. And I think we kind of all fell into a bit of a trap of just owning our own job and actually not building something beyond. And it was something that, as probably as early as 2007, that I personally feel that both my business partner David and I thought about quite differently. And the wealth building thing, I think, was really important to us. And like you were saying, I think there was quite a polarization in agency, where you get those agents that retire seemingly off into the sunset with a boat and a house in Spain, and you think, oh, he's done all right, he's doing quite well there. And then the others that sort of disappear into nothing, and you think, well, what didn't he do in the same way? And I actually think in our market and sort of our peers, our elder peers, the ones that got it right invested in property. I'm not necessarily sure that's still the case or the right way. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's part of the mix. I think it should be part of the mix, and I think it's one of our advantages as being agents, having sort of ear to the ground, having real comfort around our market. But that wealth creation piece, certainly with these agents now that are earning great money, I see as a bit of stewardship from us to be able to kind of help direct them to ensure that they've got the right things set up, they're filling the pots in the right way, and actually building a life that can completely change the game for them. And I think completely changes the way that they behave as an estate agent. It allows them to mature and establish in a market reinvest in their business in different ways, grow in different, and become a real asset to the entire organization as a shining example of somebody that's worked damn hard, created a decent income, and then actually chose some sensible things to do with it. Because we've all seen the agents do it in the other direction, right? We've all seen the roller coaster of up and down in money and how it works.
That's the beauty of commission and sales, isn't it? You know, I was an agent at 19. My 20s were good.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I lived 2 lives in my 20s. I had nice cars, nice things, you know, nice trips, and it was fun. But I didn't have anything to show for it other than the house I lived in, a 2-bed house I lived in when I turned 30. And you have to then go, well, I did have something to show for it. I had a lot of debt. You know, I was in control of my debt. I didn't have any financial problems at all, but I didn't really have anything to show for the money that I'd earned over that period. Whereas probably the last 2 or 3 years, having that different outlook, I think when you turn early 30s, mid 30s, and then you kind of maybe up to sort of 50, that window of life is probably where we're at our busiest. I would say, you know, we are everyone you speak to, how you getting on, mate? Yeah, I'm busy.
Life is busy.
What's going on?
And we are, you know, probably the deepest quote you'll hear today is we're either busy living or we're busy dying. And that's the phase that we're in at the moment. And you've got to kind of almost make that decision of which route, which perspective are you looking at? And I do think for estate agents, the opportunity now for the market and the clientele that have adapted to, since lockdown, a different way of working, a different type of agent. I do think that has given the industry the opportunity to really see a career past kids, which I didn't really see an employment career past children in estate agency before, because 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, when you're a parent,
I can't think of anything worse.
it's hard, right?
And do you think, I'll ask a question to both of you really, do you think lockdown was that point in the sand that people said, I don't want to do the 6 days a week, I want the flexibility? You mentioned about working from home with the company's name. That's a real change in people's perspective. There's a lot of home working happening now. Do you think lockdown was the point that made personal agency, self-employed agency, more popular and more realistic for somebody who had to go into the high street shop 6 days a week previously?
I think it helped with the shops. I don't think it's taken us away from a 6-day working week. It might have got rid of the Sundays. But actually, conversely, some of our most successful agents actually spend more time working at the weekend than they do in the week.
Yeah.
And more time working in the evenings than they do in the work day, because it kind of suits their life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I still think property is almost like a 7-day-a-week thing, and the hours can be slightly unsociable. But you can make it work for you. And if you have that ability to work flexibly, then you can get your time back. And with the office environment we're open 9 till 6 days a week, you have to be there.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have that door open. And I think that was the bind. That was the tie that tied people to those rigid working hours. And then people still wanted evening viewings and weekend viewings.
Yeah.
And so you had to do that as well. And I think we literally had just moved our business in January of 2020. We'd closed 3 high street offices with this decision that we were going to centralize the operations, and then we were going to launch our self-employed program in September. Yeah. And we'd done that move, and then we were closed down within 6 weeks, or whatever it was, 8 weeks. And we were so thankful at that moment of, I'm really glad I don't have 3 shops to close and 3 shops to think about reopening with little like nightclub bouncer sort of string rope across the front door because nobody was allowed in. We're really open, honestly, but we don't have the door open. And I was really thankful that we didn't have to go through that process at the time. We were back in our offices on the 15th of May and we'd never closed them again since. We were able to bounce back really quickly from that moment. But we had a huge marketing campaign prepared to tell all of our local customers why we've moved off the high street.
Yeah.
We cancelled the whole thing. It was unnecessary. Nobody needed it.
Yeah.
Our competitors didn't really open their offices for probably another 9 months. So we were able to save a fortune that we had planned to actually to tell everybody why we'd come off the high street and what we'd done. Everybody was like, well, it doesn't really matter to us anymore. So it was a nice line in the sand from that point. I think it kind of removed that hold that we all had because we'd all grown up with it as I need a high street office to be an estate agent. That was no longer the truth.
I do think what lockdown, less the public, that part of it, high street, is the high street dead? It kind of had that whole element of things. But I think if you looked at estate agents before COVID, before lockdown, boards, websites, leaflets, direct mails, roundabout sponsorship, all of those things are faceless, because a direct mail is faceless, you know, and a board was faceless, and a roundabout sponsorship was faceless, and websites were faceless. They were stock imagery. But what estate agents had to do after lockdown is they had to go on social media, and you can't do social media faceless. And what that allowed the UK to then have was people facing brands, personal brands, if you like, whether you're inside a traditional agency, a self-employed agency, or it's your own company. All of a sudden, estate agent faces were in local Facebook groups, on ads, on reels, and all of a sudden estate agents became people and not these boards that you just saw everywhere, where the valuer changes every single 6 months and the manager's on a guarantee, and after his 6-month guarantees at the one down the road. And that was the biggest influence that actually catapulted self-employed estate agency in the UK and made it acceptable, because all of a sudden people were visible and they weren't visible before. They were restricted almost, weren't they, from being visible?
Well, you weren't allowed in some places. They didn't want you to create too much of a persona, or they didn't want you to comment. Well, some of the places, right? And they didn't want you to comment on others' posts and like other people's posts. The boards were a massive game changer for us. When we became IAD, the boards have the agent's face and the agent's name, obviously supported by the global business, and like the receivership of it. Our agents were all understandably a bit nervous because we hadn't done it before. We all used to operate under the David Lee brand with the same board. I wish we'd done the faces sooner. Oh my gosh, the impact of having the faces on the boards was as strong as the impact of when we really doubled down on video. So in October 2019, we employed our first full-time videographer, and we got all of the agents to run full video introductions, let people show the tour, and then finish it at the end with the agent. And our view on that was that actually one of the busiest property websites in the UK is Rightmove, and I can get your face on Rightmove. I can get your face and your name on Rightmove. And that was really awkward. We used to have some wicked blooper reels. Like once a month, we'd release like a 4-minute blooper reel of people messing things up. After about 4 months, we couldn't do blooper reels anymore. They'd all got used to it. They didn't completely like it at the beginning, but we really ensured that they sort of stuck with it. And then all the feedback I was getting, people would walk up the drive and go, "Oh, you're the bloke from the video. How you doing?" And they'd call you by name, and that familiarization was built instantly. And even then, when we did that in 2019, I didn't quite realise the impact that the boards would have had. If we'd have done the boards as well, we would have just doubled down on that personal relationship type of arrangement. So, I think the faces have been a big thing.
Huge. And it, like where we were talking about the American lawyers, and now the dentist that's putting his face out there because he's the dentist or she's the dentist. These things are vital in this day and age, because now there is so much unauthentic digital creation with AI and imagery. You don't know what's real. I mean, I'm pretty sure the other day I saw a lion fight a gorilla, and then like a clown came out of his arse or something. And I was watching it thinking, this is the craziest fight I've ever seen. Oh, and then there's a clown. It's clearly AI. The world is, but the one thing that we can be is we can be people in a moment when they do need us in a property move, and we can be human. And I think that is why you're now seeing a lot of industry commentators, we all know who they are, tall ones that wear the jacket on the sofa, all the different ones out there, and they are now putting the stats out there, and they're like, look, self-employed agents have the best conversion rate. They have the best performance. And it's no surprise to us, because we're like, we knew that would be the case, because that client's dealing with me. And I've done this since 2003, and I only deal with 8. So of course they're going to get a better service, because I'm doing the viewing. I'm negotiating the offer. Of course. It isn't rocket science.
And there's choice, isn't there?
I
think that's something that kind of, I think, gets a little bit overshadowed in the success of self-employed agents, is because we're potentially incentivize differently, as opposed from instruction to actual sale, the incentives are different. So actually bringing a house to market for a self-employed agent, you want to be pretty sure you're going to sell that thing. You want to be confident that you're going to get rid of that.
Yeah. We're not getting paid up front, are we? So,
No.
it's key.
It's a liability until it completes.
What does, you've seen the trends obviously in the other countries, or you've heard about the trends meeting the people from the other countries that run them. What does IAD look like in the UK, over the next kind of 4 years as we get towards 2030?
Gosh, amazing. 4 years, wow. It's just it's a growth machine. So one of the great parts about the business is because we empower the agents within the business to grow their own businesses, it naturally doubles in size more quickly over time. So the growth rate that we've seen and we've witnessed in all of the other countries has been a fantastic growth rate over a period. Don't get me wrong. As we were saying, our Portuguese market is at 1,100 agents now and just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. And it sometimes grows in stages as well. I was talking to Alfredo, the CEO of our Portuguese business, and he said they got really stuck at 750 for a while. They would have people come in and they go up to 8, they drop back down, they go up, they go down, and then all of a sudden he realized that they were actually building a really solid foundation within the business that it then really accelerated quite quickly up to 1,000. So you have these points. I don't think it's a smooth journey. Yeah. It goes up in phases, and as you know, in all businesses, people come and go, and some people stay and succeed and thrive, and others come and go. So the journey over the next 4 years is going to be continued growth of the network. I can see us we'll surpass 100 agents in the next sort of 2 months, and then and beyond that we'll be heading towards our next sort of milestone of it'll go from 100 to 200. But actually the 100 to 200 will come quicker than the first hard 100. And then it will, and actually it moves in that direction. So, our ambition is to be the number one self-employed agent in every market that we operate. And we are on the trajectory for that in all of the other markets that we currently operate. We are number one in Mexico and in France and Italy, and actually, number 2 and 3 in some of the other countries. So, our ambition is that it's simple to be the number one self-employed agent in each of the countries that we operate.
I'd love to pick someone's brain about the Mexican market.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah,
it is fascinating. It's fascinating.
Talk us through a little bit about the similarities between the UK market and the differences in some of the other markets that they operate in. I'm intrigued by you saying 70% there or thereabouts the business stays the same, but 30% localization. Very clever business, because obviously you need that to be successful. But talk us through about some of the differences that the UK has with other markets, and maybe a little bit about how our market is perceived.
So our market is definitely perceived as a more professional market, even though we're unlicensed. So we operate in...
Professional?
Yep. That's us, me, all three of us.
Hey, well done, T. I am shocked by that.
Yeah, I mean, and actually they're very surprised when you talk to any of our colleagues that we are unlicensed. And it's something that I believe we should be, and I'd love it to be part of what we do. I'm a member of Property Mark, have been for years. I'd love that to be even just the grounding of some form of qualification and licensing for the business. Our Italian market is licensed. Our US market is obviously licensed, and there's even an element of licensing in France and Portugal as well. So they're quite surprised that there isn't any barrier to entry to that degree. But they definitely see our marketing at an elevated level, and I do as well. I've seen the examples of it. I think the marketing that we put together, the videos, the way in which we approach some of the presentation of the properties overall is at a much higher level. They are absolutely astonished on our fees.
Low.
They cannot believe how low we can operate businesses. And obviously, everybody would drive for higher fees if we could. And we've kind of ended up in the position that we are. So the fees are a big standout thing. Like I was talking to I had one of our Mexican agents come and join us 2 weeks ago at a management and leadership conference that we held in London. Santiago came over and he's getting 7% on his fees in Mexico. He said standard's 5%. But I want 7. So actually, the way I build my business, I demand 7 for the job that I do.
What's the Portuguese lady getting that's English?
Do you know what? I don't know actually.
Because that's 200 grand a pop.
It's probably more in the region of 5%.
Yeah.
The average across our French market is over 4%, but the average for the market there is about 5%, so they're slightly below the average market in the French market. But they're all probably charging double or more. However, buy side is so much stronger in many of these other markets that just hasn't taken off here yet. And I kind of hope it does.
Acting for the buyer?
Yeah, acting for the buyer, being paid by the buyer to work on their behalf. I was talking to somebody yesterday saying, "Oh, does an MLS look like it's likely to be here?" So a multi-listing service where all of the agents are populating a similar to Rightmove.
It's gone the other way,
everybody has
right?
the
Since
access.
lockdown, it's gone the other way. It's like everything's just individual agency.
Yeah.
There used to be a lot of multi.
There's not much dual now, is there?
No, it's not. We're talking. Yeah, we're saying it's sort of like 95/5 in our market. So yeah, there isn't a lot of that, but actually there's a huge opportunity for it. Like I've got some brilliant friends in agency and people that I've known for a long time that I'd happily work with. And actually, if you can help me sell my house quicker, then let's go.
Yeah.
And I think I'm seeing it more from the self-employed brokers as they control more of the fee.
Yeah.
When you work in an employed environment and you're only getting 5% of the fee, who are you getting permission from to share the rest of it? Like your branch manager's not up for that. He thinks he'll white knuckle it out and we'll sell it in 6 to 8 weeks eventually. So I think the brokers are having more flexibility and are being a bit more open to it. So buy side, I think, is something that I think really could develop, but I only think it will develop once the self-employed sector develops. And the self-employed sector in the UK is still low in comparison to the amount of people that are employed in this business here.
Yeah, it's interesting to see if portals play a part of that and kind of the perspective of, I see sometimes the comments in the local Facebook groups and clients are like, right, I want to recommend. In fact, I'll tell you exactly what comment went in the local Facebook group was, I'm trying to sell my property. It's not been selling for 12 weeks. The estate agent is coming out of contract. I want to use another agent. I see some of the agents that do the fancy videos and stuff like that, but they charge a lot of money and I don't need that. It was exactly what was put in there, right? And I was like, wow, I mean, you are literally calling us out because it is the marketplace where we are the video agent. We are the expensive agent. She's like, it's not working. I see these really successful ones, but they charge a lot of money and I don't want to use them. Carry on not working. But the actual comments from the public was really interesting because it was a real split of all estate agents do the same to you need an agent that does good marketing, but also is a good agent to get you the good results. And you're going to have to pay better than 500 quid, 1%, whatever it may be. And it was actually quite interesting to see the public fighting against estate agents and for estate agents without, and obviously a few of the local agents jumped in at whatever point, but it was really interesting to see. And that shows that if we can get to the point where I guess the whole all agents do the same thing gets lost. And I do think the collaboration as well is the generation above us.
Yes.
I do think that kind of sort of more community-led support network type, sharing is caring sort of vibe is very much in this group of ownership.
Yeah. It's the generation we were taught by.
Yeah.
Isn't it, really? It's my old branch manager, my assistant branch manager. It was dog eat dog. Everybody's the enemy.
Yeah, and it's what we were trained. I was an arsehole in my life. I was in my 20s. I was ruthless. Now it just comes out every now and then. But I mean, that's what you were trained. That's what you were meant to be. You know, you had to be like that. You had to be ruthless. You had to be cutthroat. We were doing all sorts of things that I'm not going to share on camera right now. But those times are kind of I've moved away, and I do think that paints a really nice picture for the future of UK estate agency.
The first person who kind of exposed me to thinking differently around that was Kevin Ellis at the Land and New Homes Network. We became a member of the network when it first launched. And
Chelsea fan.
He is a Chelsea fan. Also very disappointed, I think, the other day. I saw it on social media.
Humbled we are.
He with his network, he had the idea of actually collaboration is the key. Working together. If you've got a developer client, actually going outside of your remit, going outside of your area to work with the other agents. If you've got a developer that's got a new build site and it's not in your area, work with somebody within the network, take share of the fee and actually work together. And actually he was really driving this collaborative approach, which for someone from Romans probably didn't exist in his previous life either. And actually he was able to introduce us to that and really change my mindset on it. And from that point on, I became really open to it. And the more I've gone on 6-7 years later, for me, that is the future of being able to move things quickly and give the best service for a customer. Within what we do, actually, the agents are incentivized to do it. So there's fee agreements in place with every contract that the agent signs that actually, if you do pass a buyer lead or a seller lead, there's no negotiation required. You will get 12% of the fee. And just as a thank you for that referral, just to encourage and monetize the whole process, to make the agents work together. Because if we do, we become more powerful as a group.
How does inter-referral stuff work at an operation at the size of an IAD? Because we were talking on a different podcast about referrals and the fact that we're not great at it in UK estate agency, kind of passing of business, because we're focused on our own lane. But I'm interested to know whether you see this kind of like, I'd imagine this central tech and things like that. Is that going on across Europe?
Yeah. So we've had this sharing agreement in place in our contract ever since 2008. In 2015, two guys decided that actually the referrals were becoming quite difficult to track. I didn't know where all of the agents were. I didn't know how to find them necessarily quickly and make that referral and then actually secure to be sure that I was going to get paid at the back end. So two agents within the network created a mobile application that any of our agents in the French network at the time could download. And if they had a client that was moving or buying in another area, they could refer their details to that local agent. Once the deal completes, they would get paid their share of the commission through the app. It's called Proper Tips. The app became so successful within the French network with so much adoption from the agents that it raised the attention of IAD themselves. And IAD actually bought the technology from the founders. They in-housed it to the IAD network. And then they did three interesting things. They ensured that the entire French network had downloaded it and were using it. So they were making the referrals digitally. They then allowed the agents to refer internationally. So you could now refer any of our other countries with a buyer or seller and receive a share of the fee. And then the third thing they did was they opened it up to the general public. So now, as a member of the general public, you can download the Proper Tips app. If you knew somebody that was buying or selling, you could refer them to their local agent and receive a share of the fee as a thank you. Last year in the UK, the average referral earned that member of the public £420. Now, I remember working in agency on the commission splits that I was getting, and I don't think I got 420. Oh, no, I got half that for selling the house myself as the agent. So now I can give you up to, £420 plus, depending on the house price, just for that referral. So the app's been wildly successful. I think it's now been downloaded over 1 million times, and has got a massive database of users. And as a business last year, we earned €74 million in commission based upon referrals that came from the app.
So it works somewhere else.
It's a pretty strong answer.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's agents out there that are referring, 1,500 quid conveyancing leads and getting £10 Amazon vouchers. So, it seems like a better option for sure.
Yeah. And one of the smart things, actually, one of the agents that we work with in France, he goes into all of the local estate agents in his area and gets them to download the app. They join his team in the app and he says, look, if you've got a customer that you can't service, so if you're a one branch estate agent or they're moving to an area of the country or going overseas and you can't help them, just chuck the details in the app and you'll get paid. And you'll get paid more than if you'd sold the flat around the corner.
And as the influence, he's obviously getting a reward.
Yeah, so with the app itself, it's designed in a similar way to our business. So you as the user of the app invite somebody to join the app. Once they've joined the app, if they make a referral, you also get a share of that fee. So that goes through 5 different levels. So you can build a little organization inside of your Proper Tips app.
Yeah.
As somebody that's not even part of IAD. You can do it as a member of the public as well.
Yeah.
So one of the cool parts with that is they run a little formula called a Proper Tips after work. And it's basically just like a little networking drinks in the afternoon or in the early evening. And basically you talk to people about the app, let them know what it is. They all join. your team. And then actually you encourage them to make referrals to either you as the first receiver, but if it's outside of your area, it can go to any one of our agents. That person still gets paid, but you also get a share of the payment as a thank you for expanding the network and expanding the team. And there's some wild success stories within the business of people that have really focused on it and built huge like little referrer bases, 2,000 people, 3,000 people in their Probatips app.
Yeah, you do see some of those American clips where, you know, real estate agents are out there and they're knocking on doors in the new neighborhood, but not because they're on the market, just because they're introducing themselves and giving a business card. And you think, okay, it's as a sort of British guy, it's like, what the hell? But then something like that there's a reason, you know, if you're a new agent and you've got that app and you've got this bit of tech, why wouldn't you go to the local estates and, you know, start knocking on some doors and saying, hi, I've opened, you know, this is the way that you could do X, Y, and Z. It does make a lot of sense. It'll be very interesting to see, obviously, how things unfold over the next couple of years, and appreciate you coming on the podcast and being open and sharing some of these things. It's great to get an insight. I think we're all the same. It's amazing that it's the biggest estate agency in Europe, but we haven't heard about it. It shows how insular we are as a little island that kind of focuses on what we focus on. Even when, you know, the American ones came over, I was like, Keller who? Like, who Max what? I was like, you just don't know who they are, do you? Because we're in our own world. So it's nice to share some of the different cultural things, some of the different mindsets, and from a tech point of view, the advancements as well. So, appreciate you having us on.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much. If people want to reach out to you,
LinkedIn's good. Yeah. I try and keep LinkedIn up to date, and I'm pretty responsive on there. So please find me, Leo O'Brien, on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Fabulous. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Thanks so much for listening or watching. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it out on social, share it with colleagues, reach out to Ian, Lee, or myself. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.